Land acknowledgement. As we gather together, we acknowledge the sacred land on which we reside. It has been a site of human activity for 15,000 years. This land is the territory of the Huron-Wendat and Petun First Nations, the Seneca, and most recently, the Mississaugas of the Credit River. The territory was the subject of Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement between the Iroquois Confederacy and Confederacy of the Ojibwe and allied nations to peaceably share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. Today, this gathering place is still the home of many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to work in the community on this territory. We are also mindful of broken covenants and the need to strive to make right with all our relations. Last but certainly not least, we acknowledge the people of African descent who were brought here against their own will or in search of a safe place to live their lives and raise their children. Reconnaissance des terres. En nous rassemblant, nous reconnaissons la terre sacrée sur laquelle nous résidons. C'est un site d'activité humaine depuis 15 000 ans. Cette terre est le territoire des Premières Nations Huron-Wendat et Petun, les Scéniques et plus récemment les Mississaugas de la rivière Crédit. Le territoire était sujet de l'alliance de la ceinture wampum plat avec cuillère, un accord entre la Confédération Iroquois et Confédération des Ojibwe et des nations alliées à partager et à prendre soin pacifiquement pour les ressources autour des Grands Lacs. Aujourd'hui, ce lieu de rassemblement est toujours le foyer de nombreux peuples autochtones de toute l'île de la Tortue et nous sommes reconnaissants d'avoir la possibilité de travailler dans la communauté sur ce territoire. Nous sommes également conscients des alliances brisées et de la nécessité de nous efforcer de guérir toutes nos relations. Dernier point, mais non le moindre, nous remercions les personnes d'ascendance africaine qui ont été amenées ici contre leur volonté ou à la recherche d'un endroit sûr où vivre leur vie et élever leurs enfants.
Hello, everyone, and good afternoon. Welcome to today's Level Up Masterclass. I'd like to thank you for joining us this afternoon, and I want to introduce our speaker, Idrissa Brathwaite, who will be joining us to speak on her expertise. So before she begins in her presentation, I want to give a brief introduction to our speaker. Idrissa is a senior IT manager for clinical support operations in BC. She was born in Barbados and later relocated to UK and then to South Korea, establishing a career in information technology, spanning over 15 years in the housing, energy, education, and healthcare industries. Since completing a master's in information systems, specializing in big data analysis at the University of Liverpool, she has embarked on a technology-focused MBA at Simon Fraser University. An IT manager by day and an entertainer by night, her love for music developed into a DJ career, playing sounds grounded in her Caribbean heritage and influenced by UK underground dance culture. Good morning, Idrissa, and thank you for joining us all the way from British Columbia. Welcome.
Good morning, Robin. Thank you very much for your introduction. Before we get started, I just want to make sure, can you see my screen, the presentation?
Yes, I could see it clearly.
Fantastic. Welcome, guys. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Robin's already told you a little bit about me. In addition to playing music, you know, I enjoy the outdoors in BC. It's a fantastic place to go hiking, exercising. So I do that a lot here. Luckily, we're enjoying a beautiful summer at the moment. So I'm definitely getting out there and hitting the trails. Just a little bit more about my background. So Robin mentioned that I completed my master's at the University of Liverpool. The focus of my studies was big data. In fact, my thesis focus was specifically based in understanding big data and how it could be leveraged to improve and modernize the tourism industry, both in Barbados and the Caribbean region. As I embarked on understanding how data lakes can be leveraged as a storage and centralization mechanism to do or complete large amounts of data analysis. Outside of that, I spent 7 years in the UK, 2 years in South Korea, and I've been in BC for 11 years. So travel is definitely a huge part of my lifestyle. And I'm really looking forward to engaging you in this conversation and hopefully sharing my knowledge and in hopes that you can leverage some of this to either start your business or push your business forward. Okay, so we'll just get into it. So the focus of this conversation is understanding how we can leverage big data to move your business forward. I think that sometimes in order to move forward, it's important to take a look back. So let's consider for a moment how much our world has changed during the last century. If we consider simple things like electricity, telegram, telephone, radio, television, communicating via Morse code, simple things like vinyl records, that transitioning into MP3s, the invention of the computer, and of course the dawn of the internet. So many things have changed over our lifespan. Throughout history, we have sought to find ways to consume, transform, and manipulate both energy and information to advance the way that we live. When I started preparing this, the one thing that stood out in my mind is my mobile phone. What did we do before you had a cellular device? One simple piece of technology has literally transformed the way that we communicate and socialize with each other. This infograph demonstrates how technology has influenced the way that we communicate, how we travel, conduct business, socialize, and entertain ourselves. When you look at this image, I'd like you to take a moment to consider what you think the common thread is. I think the one guess would be data. The continuous development of access and the consumption of information has evolved over time, and we will discuss that throughout the rest of these slides. I'll just briefly touch on a few points. I think I mentioned radio as being one of the inventions that has been a part of our technology timeline. The transistor was invented in 1947. And we don't think of that, I think, on a daily basis, but that piece of technology is actually what led to the development of processors, which then led to the development of computers. And of course, computers are now embedded into your mobile devices. Okay, so what is big data and why is it so big? Data is another word to describe information. When we examine this in the context of computers and mobile devices, data exists in many forms and is consumed and transmitted via a plethora of sources. So data can be static, or it can flow in real time, and it may be stored for consumption, analysis, or even in some cases, discarded after transmission. A great example of that is networks. Your internet transmits data to and from a central resource, which then allows you to access a slew of other resources across the web. Now, due to the ubiquity of smart devices, we as individuals produce a significant volume of data on a daily basis. You know, these devices, cellular devices, iPads, home devices like Alexa, Google Home, even your smart vacuums and smart telephones. The reason we call them smart is because of the technology that's built into them. Excuse me. Even your fitness trackers emit huge volumes of data, which lead to the creation of profiles about everything that you do. Now, here's a visual representation of what this data looks like from a real world perspective. I'm not sure if you can see the unit measurements here, but when we're talking about data, we're talking about bits and bytes as a measurement. The highest measurement is a yottabyte. I don't think that individually we transmit that much data per day, but let's take, for example, we send over 65 billion messages via WhatsApp, WhatsApp video, etc. A smart car like your Tesla can transmit or even store up to 4 terabytes of data. 5 million tweets are sent every single day. We send 294 billion emails every day. So if you think about that in numbers, that is a huge volume of data that we are sending out or consuming through our devices every single day. Okay, so what does this look like from the perspective of online platforms? As potential business owners, I think this is where the meat of the conversation really begins. Because we consume all of these services, and these services are provided by some of the largest companies across the world. I think Google is probably the biggest and most well-known. Huge search engine. This infograph just shows you how these services are consumed by us every day. For example, Americans use over 4 million gigabytes of internet data every single minute. We send 188 million emails every minute, 18 million texts per minute, and 390 apps are downloaded every minute. And this is just in America alone. So if we think about that on a world scale, again, that gives you a great perspective and insight into how much data is floating around across the interwebs. Academically, when we think about big data, we categorize it through we call it the V's of big data. So when academics first started exploring this topic, it was the 3 V's of big data. It later was extended to include the 6 V's. Most recently, it's been expanded to include the 7 V's of data. During my research for this discussion, I also discovered that an 8th was added, but we won't discuss that today. So let's talk about this a little bit more. Here, this diagram shows you volume, variety, velocity, the veracity, volume, and variability of data. Volume refers to the size of the data generated from all the sources that are available. So for example, that could be audio, text, research studies, video, social networks, images, medical data, weather forecasting, and the list goes on and on. Velocity is the speed or state of how fast data can be accessed and processed. A variety means the different data sources that are or that might be difficult to arrange because this data may not be structured. It could be semi-structured. So you can store or access data in many different arrangements. Variability is all about the correct interpretation and understanding of raw data. You're trying to, in a data analysis context, you are trying to define or discern some kind of accurate meaning from large sets of data. Veracity refers to how data is collected. You want to make sure that this data is accurate, and you want to be able to separate your bad data from your good data so that it can be used to move your business forward. I think we've touched on veracity. The last is variability. I think I touched on that. Veracity, of course, and visualization, which is exactly what we're doing now. We're visualizing this topic. Essentially, when you complete your data research, you might want to present it in reports so that you have a physical representation of what your data looks like in order to make strong business decisions. Big data means big business. So what does it mean to be a data-driven company? So now that we understand how much data is in the interwebs, as I call it, or across the internet, we want to understand how we can leverage it to positively impact your business. And further understand how we can use this data to drive our companies forward. So data-driven companies actively make strategic decisions based on the data we analyze and interpret. Taking this approach allows companies to examine and organize data in a way that positively serves their customers and improves the way that they operate on a daily basis. So in order to leverage these advantages, we have to review the types of data analysis techniques that can be applied in your organizations and that are commonly available across several platforms. So when we're looking at data, there are four main types of data analysis techniques that can be applied separately or that can be used in combination. Predictive analytics uses statistical methods to identify predictive variables and historical data to predict future events. So essentially, it builds a model that is then used on current data to predict what will happen or to help you or to help make suggestions of actions that can be taken to produce optimal outcomes for your business. Descriptive analysis pretty much does what it says on the tin. It describes a particular data set. Diagnostic analysis takes insights found from descriptive analytics and more deeply examines how to find the causes and to determine outcomes. So small businesses can use this type of analytics to find patterns or behaviors and then use this data to create connections. Prescriptive analytics combines insights from all the previous analysis to determine the course of action to take to resolve a problem or issue. So a lot of these techniques are applied across applications that you commonly use every day, particularly social media. Platforms like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Squarespace, just to name a few. Each of these platforms employs these types of analytics to serve you as a consumer, but also to drive their business forward. Their advertising techniques, for example, uses lots of these techniques to present you with options that you will hopefully consume later. So as previously discussed, some of our social media platforms like Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook employ a lot of these data analytics techniques. In the real world, if you wanted to leverage these techniques to push your business forward, each of these platforms has an interface that allows you to understand how your business or brand interacts with your customers on a daily basis. So these companies, Twitter, Facebook, etc., they employ bespoke algorithms that are deployed and help you to gain insights for your business. So, for example, Twitter they leverage a lot of algorithm techniques. They employ what we call APIs and plugins that allow you to scrub data from your users. So you can perform analytics that allow you to geographically pinpoint where your users are, the times of the day that they most actively engage with you. And you can even then visually display those results for your teams to leverage those insights further. Now, these screenshots are just snapshots of each of these analytic platforms. They're all presented in different forms, and I'll be able to share some of these resources after if you guys have any questions. So let's look at a little bit further into how data-driven companies can benefit from leveraging data analytics. So with an understanding of analytics and a few tools under your belt, you're now in a good position to put your knowledge to good use. So this means that as a business owner, you are strategically positioned to ensure that your business is data focused. So how can you do this? You need to ensure that you employ the right resources and that you have access to the necessary data and the tools to analyze it. So here are some of the ways you can use big data to gain an edge over your competitors. Big data analytics can help you to reduce costs, increase efficiency, identify weaknesses and failures, design new products and services, conduct 360 customer reviews. You can identify and prevent fraud. You can increase operational efficiency, and you can optimize pricing strategies in order to make smarter business decisions. So again, let's talk about this in the real world. So how can you apply a data-driven approach in your business? You can use the data you already have. So as a small business, you might not always have the funds that much larger companies do. So you want to be able to leverage free tools to help you manage simple things like your email list. You can create a simple email marketing plan and analyze your results. You can review email marketing reports and try to understand how many customers opened, how many customers subscribed, understand which subjects capture people the most, what email templates are the most popular. Social media analytics is something we discussed previously. Social media business accounts provide great insights into how you're engaging with your customers. And additionally, data becomes available if you sell products on these platforms. So most people use social media to just engage. You can also use these platforms to sell your products. And if you do this, you also gain additional insights into the number of clicks, how many people abandoned or completed their transactions, etc. I think this generation relies a lot more on social media, so you don't see a lot of people with websites. But if you happen to have a website, you can also leverage free tools to analyze the data on your web space. So most web platforms provide free analytics tools that will allow you to monitor web traffic. And of course, the most widely available tool you can leverage to help your business move forward is, of course, the internet. You can use the internet to pretty much find anything. You can use a resource to gain insights into how your competitors are doing. You can stay up to date with the latest trends. And also, most importantly, you can find a plethora of free tools to help you get started on your data analysis journey. So what are some other tangible examples of data analytics in business? So in my work, I manage a large service desk. We support clinical applications. And as such, we run a very large call center. Call center metrics is a great example of everyday business analytics. So we measure things like SLA, ABR, AHT, ASA. I'm just going to explain some of these terms a little bit more to give you a perspective as to how this data is used to move the business forward and drive productivity. So SLA is service level attainment. This is essentially an agreement between service provider and a client to determine how and when financial incentives will be applied. So if the service provider meets X target, they get paid. If they don't meet the target, in some cases, they're penalized. So some of the data that you collect from a call center is ABR. So this is the abandonment rate. How many calls were lost due to long wait times or lost because the customer simply hung up. The average handling time describes on average how long it takes for an agent to complete a call. The ASA is the average speed to answer. This determines how quickly an agent answers a call. So why is this important? We want to leverage this data to make changes to our business. So if you are receiving peak calls at 7 a.m. and you only have 2 agents on, it means that your abandonment rate is going to be much lower, which means you're going to have much higher, which means you're going to have lots of unhappy customers. So you can use these numbers in a real way to make operational changes. So when you dig into this data, you can add capacity, you can remove capacity, etc. And that impacts your business almost immediately. Another measurement that you can obtain through data analytics is employee productivity. So you can leverage this data to understand how well your employees work. You know, how many calls does an agent take per day? How efficiently does an employee complete a task? We might not necessarily think of this data as being important, but when you really start to understand how you can leverage this, it can really move your business forward in a huge way. I think one of the more common data measurements is customer satisfaction surveys. These are CSATs. This is about asking your customer to share their insights and perceptions to increase their interest and engagement with your company. Furthermore, customers will feel valued and appreciated when you specifically address their concerns. So the more engaged your customers are, the more likely they are to remain loyal to your company. You can deploy CSAT surveys quite easily with many free tools. You know, we talked earlier about leveraging email lists, and this is something that anyone can execute quite simply. Predictive advertising is a much larger data set. You see this mainly with larger companies like Google, Netflix, Facebook, Instagram. Search engines and social media services collect your clicks and queries, your likes and dislikes in order to sell you products and to predict your next purchase. Using this data that you provide, these companies can build a profile of who they think you are and offer you those services. Now, you can leverage something very similar when you deploy analytics tools across your social media platforms and also across your website. Let's think about Netflix, for example. Netflix offers you viewing recommendations based on everything that you've previously watched. And this is done through data analytics once again. So in summary, all of this data can be used in some way to inform operational changes in your business. and also inform your day-to-day activities or your business models. So what are some of the things you need to consider when collecting data? So first and foremost, don't be evil. This is actually Google's mantra, and I think this can be applied to all small businesses. You need to use your data for good and for the good of your customers. You need to be transparent in your practices and take steps to ensure that the people that you employ are also doing the same. So you want to ensure data security. Train your employees to adhere to security principles. You need to put things in place to protect information, to protect computers and your networks. You want to ensure that you have basic firewall security. You want to have a secure internet connection. Ensure that there are secured backups of important company information. You want to control physical access to computers and create accounts for your employees. And never use the same passwords across your applications and interfaces. You also want to limit access to data and information. So a term we use in IT is you want to give the least amount of access wherever possible. So if somebody doesn't need to see the names and email addresses of your customers, don't provide that information to them. And of course, the basics: secure your Wi-Fi access, and of course, ensure, enforce password authentication. Another thing you want to do is ensure that you have great data. If you put garbage in, you're going to get garbage out. So you need to keep your data up to date, and you want to ensure that it's fully accessible and fully functional at all times. And last but not least, keep your costs low. You don't need to invest large amounts in all the latest tools. You can grow your data analysis techniques as you grow your business. Okay, questions?
Thank you, Idrissa, so much for giving us a rundown of all that information. Please do feel free to raise your virtual hand and I can call on anyone, or I will also be able to read out some questions in the chat. Okay, Victoria has a question. Victoria, go ahead.
Idrissa, thank you so much for the presentation today. Big data is a little scary, right? So you really helped to break that down for me. My question is just, if we are looking at, talking to a consultant or someone to help us understand, what should they be saying to us, or what key performance indicators, and I feel like you went over some of those, should they be bringing to us so we know, okay, this is someone who pretty much knows what they're doing and someone that we should consider working with?
That's a great question. First of all, your consultant should understand your business. So if you are, let's say, a small retailer, you want to find someone who has expertise in e-commerce, in marketing. They should have the skills and knowledge to guide you in a very specific area. They should present tools that give you the access to the data, because ultimately you are the data owner. And you want to ensure that cost is conducive to ensuring longevity of that data analysis. Often consultants come in with a huge suite of tools and assets that might not necessarily be the best fit for your company. So you need to ensure that their focus is on you, your needs, and that the tools are fit for purpose. I think for me, the most important thing is ensuring that you have access to that data. You never want to get into a position where a consultancy or a firm maintains ownership of your data, either during your contractual agreement or afterwards. That data is extremely valuable, and you want to take complete ownership.
Thank you, Idrissa. We have a question in the chat from Jacqueline, and then I'll get over to the virtual hands that we have. So the first one says, hi, Idrissa, do you provide consulting to provide API and creating algorithms for companies that would like to determine key indicators for activities, for example, monitoring sales person's activities?
I do not, unfortunately, but I do have resources that I might be able to leverage in order to assist. I think at this point, I want to reiterate to the audience that a lot of the initial work you can actually do on your own.
Okay.
So do your research. Before you reach out to a consultancy, understand the analytics that you're looking for, and maybe understand the algorithmic techniques that you're looking for. So I actually have a question for this person. Are you considering algorithms for things like bots? Are you looking for things like leveraging search engine techniques? I need to understand the focus a little bit more in order to share some free resources and hopefully point you in the right direction.
Jacqueline Steele, would you like to come off of mute just to, you can go ahead and respond.
I think I have. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you fine.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So the reason I was asking, I was going to do a campaign that combined LinkedIn Sales Navigator with a lead generation process. And so I think the challenge was I wanted it to be something that I could pass on to a sales developer. But then my $1 million question became, how do I know that they are answering the call? So Sales Navigator in combination with LinkedIn has the capacity to generate leads for us. So it would trickle in. I did this with Cleverly a few months back, and it did well, but it was more than I can handle. And then I wanted to pass it on to somebody else, but I don't know how to pass it on to somebody in a way that I could track whether or not, the guy's sitting there doing his nails or are these leads going down the pipe. So I didn't know how to do that. So it was a combination of Cleverly, starting a lead generation process using LinkedIn and Sales Navigator. And then how do I monitor that? So that's kind of
okay.
Yeah.
So that's just off the top of my head, easy reporting. So you set your targets monthly, weekly, and you hold your contractor or your service provider accountable for that. So, if you say, based on my previous experience, I was able to generate X number of leads within X number of time, you can hold them accountable in the same way. And if they don't hit that target, you ensure that there's wording in your agreement to either penalize or terminate. But reporting on those insights is the thing that's going to help you to better leverage that relationship.
Is there an algorithm that you know of that can be done in Sales Navigator so that I know how many leads that person receives, and then because reporting means I either have to rely on that person to tell me I have received this or have not. I would like to automate the entire process. So
Right. Okay.
is there an algorithm that can be done in Sales Navigator?
Okay.
That would be, I can see how many leads have passed a certain threshold. So between Sales Navigator and LinkedIn, it's like a bot. And
Right.
so it will have a conversation that will go back and forth to about 4 or 5 communications that you set up. And then once it's the 5th, then you have to jump in to start the dialogue. So my question becomes, if I had an API or an algorithm that I know how many companies have hit that 5th communication, once it reaches that 5th point, then I know that 20 people have reached that 5th point. Then I can say, hey, I know 20 people have reached that 5th point. You've only closed 2 deals. Why? But it's how to, I don't know that in Sales Navigator.
Okay.
I don't mean to.
No. Understood. So I'm not familiar with Sales Navigator, but I do know some great developers. And, if possible, I would love the opportunity to at least research this for you a little bit and share those resources with you. For me, from an IT perspective, this is totally doable. So let's do some research offline and see if I can help you in some way.
So I'll send you my email.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you, Jacqueline.
Thank you very much. Great presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Jacqueline, for chiming in. Okay, I'm going to call on Camille at this time.
Hi, thank you. Is it Idrissa?
Idrissa, yes.
Idrissa, thank you. So I loved your presentation. I love all the statistics that you presented. And I had a question regarding SEO. So as new businesses, I think most of us, we really want to be on that first page and like not just anywhere on the first page, but at the top. And I realized that some SEO experts, they promise to get you there. Some of them say it's not doable. And like there's a number of things that impacts where you're at on the page. And I wanted to know, like, what's your perspective for new businesses? Is it worth it, like hiring someone to get you at the top, or is that not possible?
So I want to keep my professional hat on, but I'm going to take it off for a moment and say that I always think that, people who are not in IT are often intimidated by doing the initial work up front. And SEO is one of those things that has changed a lot over time. So my question to you is, are you talking about SEO for your website specifically?
Yes, it is.
Okay. I think that it's worth it to spend a little bit of money up front, but know your limit. So cap at basic SEO, because the algorithms in search engines change so rapidly. In order to stay at the top, you would have to spend thousands, millions of dollars. This is why social media is so important. Now, I'm not a big fan of social media. I'm from the old school, but it definitely most certainly works. If you have a website, for example, and you are, let's say, on your Instagram or your Twitter every day, every time you make a comment, every time you engage with your customer base, you can tag your company. You can send a link back to your website. Those interactions are the kind of SEO key points that push you higher in the search engine rankings. Okay. Sometimes SEO is not necessarily about the coding. It's more about the day-to-day work of creating links or mentions back to your webpage. So I would say it's okay to spend a little bit of money upfront, but long-term, unless you're a large company that has a huge budget, it might not necessarily be the best investment. I would say leverage your social media that is, I think, the forefront of what you need to be engaging in right now.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome. I hope that answers your question. You know, the algorithms change so rapidly. From my perspective, it's a challenging prospect to make that large investment over time.
Thank you for your question, Clara. I'm going to add, oh, sorry, Clara, I'm going to add you. And thank you for your question, Camille. So you can go ahead and ask your, oh, you're on mute. You need to, perfect.
Hi, thank you, Idrissa. This is a great presentation. So much information, oh my gosh. Now, I'm in a startup and I have big dreams of expanding, but I want to be very careful. I don't want to just throw money and think what I think is going to be the next big thing. I want to be able to get data, to analyze it and help me and guide me through that process as to which products I should add to my services, where I should be focusing on. And I'm just wondering, you touched on a little bit that you have some resources that you can share. And that was part of my question is like, do you have someone you can recommend or a company you can recommend or even yourself where I can link myself to who can guide me through that process? Because right now I'm at the beginning stages. And before I go to the next stage, which I already envision where I like to go, I just want something to say, hey, you need to tweak that a little bit or you're on the right track. Is there anybody you can, connect me with? Or maybe if offline, I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, there are a few people who I can connect to with, and I would absolutely love to have a conversation offline, because once I do that, then I would have a much better idea of who I can point you to or which companies might be the most helpful to get you started on that journey.
Okay. Do I send you my email address? How do you
Yes, please.
Okay,
Yeah.
I will do that. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Great
No problem.
presentation. I love it.
Oh, thank you.
Like,
I'm so glad.
me. Like, oh my God, where do I start?
That's okay. I just want to say to everyone, don't be intimidated. You literally start with an understanding of your business. You are all experts in your individual businesses. You start with one goal and then you build from there.
Thank you so much, Idrissa, for your expertise and spending your time with us. I know that it's quite, you don't have a lot of it. So thank you for taking the hour to spend with us and educate us on the benefits of big data and how we can definitely use that for our businesses and to help us grow. It's been lovely to speak with you. If there are any last minute questions that anybody would like to ask or comments, you can place them in the chat if you'd like, or you can come off from mute and share with us. Perfect. Okay, I'm going to move off into thanking Idrissa for joining us. We loved your conversation. I'm actually going, oh, we have some applauses going around. So thank you so much. Remember, this conversation is recorded and will be on our YouTube page shortly. So look up for the notification. If you are subscribed to our YouTube page, you should get a bell and click the bell notification. You should be notified once we upload. I'm just going to bring to your attention some of the events that we have going on this week. So this week, tonight, as you know, we have our Boss Woman Entrepreneurship Training Program happening at 6 p.m. So if you are a boss woman, a lot of you on the call are and have your own businesses, are looking to start up your own businesses, we'd love to have you there to join us for this evening at 6. And it's on Zoom as always. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. We'll definitely be able to help you. We also have going forward, I believe tomorrow, we have our Ask a Professional series that takes place on Wednesday at noon, where we'll be joined by Professor Dallin Taylor to discuss Black health in racialized communities. And then our last event is our BAIDS program that everybody knows of, is our BAIDS on Thursday, July 15th at 12 p.m. with our special guest, Cara Randall, who will be talking to us about her business and the ways we can make our brand pop. I'm going to take a look at some of the questions that we have here that I see in the chat. We're looking good. And if you do need Idrissa's information, Idrissa, do you feel comfortable, our participants, do you feel comfortable sharing your your information with Idrissa, you can do that personally in the chat so that you're aware of the privacy. So you can just send her a message quickly. I hope we're taking advantage of her time. And yes. Perfect. That's awesome. And that will be it for our session. It was lovely hosting you all. Idrissa, thanks once again for spending your time with us. And thank you to all the participants who showed up and chimed in. And I hope this information was relevant to you and your businesses. We look forward to hosting you again next week, of course, same time. And you'll see all the promotions. I'm sure you'll get the emails to all the events that we have taking place for next week. It's been lovely to get to know you guys, and just it's been lovely to get to know your expertise, and we wish you an amazing day.
Thank you very much.